Hello, welcome to We Are Centered CEOs. Thank you for joining us. It's Angie Rice with Centered CEOs. Jen and I co-founded Centered CEOs because we felt that what we've learned as small business owners is that there's a lot of moving parts. And even though we have our core expertise in running a business, oftentimes you have to step out of your comfort zone and develop strategies and some level of competency in areas that may not come natural to you. One of those areas for me is public speaking. And I hope today that I can start by helping, with our goal being helping 10,000 small business owners. My goal is that I can help some of you by sharing my experience with overcoming public speaking and recognizing that even though it's something that I may not necessarily be comfortable doing, and there's certainly nerves involved in terms of just being present today, I think it's important to share what you have to say and to be a voice for your business. And in order to do that, you are going to have to put yourself in a situation where you are presenting. That place may be presenting yourself live, whether over a Zoom or in person. It may be presenting to a small group, or it may be presenting to a larger group. It might be presenting to suppliers. It might be presenting to clients. And quite frankly, the most important presentation, in my opinion, is oftentimes to your employees and to your teams. You have to exude leadership to your team in order for your team to really add value to your business. So leadership, obviously, to your clients and demonstrating your expertise is also very important. But I think sometimes we overlook the fact that how we present to our employees is so essential to our business. So as far as who your audience is, clearly, obviously, that's a factor of importance. But it's also, if you do have a fear with public speaking, it's an understanding and identifying what type of public speaking has you most challenged, as well as what you can do to slowly overcome that challenge. And for some, they like to present one-on-one. I would say that's definitely my comfort zone. Is I can present one-on-one, but if you start to bring me to a table with a lot of people and there's a lot of multi-conversations going on, being able to present in that type of setting is a little bit more challenging for me. Some people do great in front of a camera. I'm well aware of some performers who actually have a fear of public speaking in private, but they do well on camera. So, we kind of assume that somebody that gets up on a stage is an extrovert, but that's not always the case. Those people can be introverts, but an extrovert when it comes to presenting on stage. So definitely, we all have different arenas where we feel more comfortable, and then areas where we have a sense of fear. Now, some of you might not have any fear. So if that's the case, in the comments, I'd love for you to share what makes public speaking come so natural to you, because your advice could really help others who do have that fear. So let's talk about ways to overcome fear. And I will definitely touch on things that have personally helped me overcome fear. I've read a lot of books. I've read blogs. I've participated even in some short little webinars on public speaking. Jenna and I actually have had some coaching on really how to create a message for our business and how we were going to share that message with all of you. So I think in some cases it can really help if you have a coach that assists you in that process. For us, it wasn't so much not knowing our voice, it was how to collaborate and have the same message be told by both of us, knowing that we have very different styles of presenting. So we really wanted to create one message, and we were somewhat struggling with how we can put together that short message that really conveyed who we were as a company and who we are as people. So I've tried a number of different things. Obviously, some things work better for other people, but I'm going to really share with you some of the techniques that have really helped me and have made a difference. I'm still learning by all means, but some of the things that I have been able to overcome is that initial fear. The first time I really started public speaking, I felt like I had to have things a little more scripted, a little more memorized. And I realized like that actually makes me more nervous than if I'm to talk more on a summary type level, if I have bullet points where I know that those are the bullet points and I'm going to have some sort of agenda where I have a start and a finish to my presentation, that actually works a lot better for me. So we'll go over some of the techniques that have worked for me. And I will share that public speaking is something that ranks very, very high on the fear factor level for a lot of people. In fact, there's a funny quote that I'm going to read here real quickly, and it was a Jerry Seinfeld quote, and it says, a recent survey, now granted this isn't recent, but at the time it was, a recent survey stated that the average person's greatest fear is having to give a speech in public. Somehow this ranked even higher than death, which was third on the list. So you're telling me that at a funeral, most people would rather be the guy in the coffin than have to stand up and give a eulogy. So the fear is real. So let's talk about ways that we can overcome it. One of the first ways that I overcame fear was to really identify what was it about public speaking that made me so fearful. And that is really the question that I think all of us should really ask ourselves is, what is it that makes me so nervous when I speak? For some, it may be a past public experience where you were speaking in public and maybe things didn't go well, or maybe you said something that, made you uncomfortable or embarrassed, or you lost your train of thought and you had that overwhelming sensation that now is creating that ongoing fear. When I was younger, I did dance lessons, and I remember I really, really struggled with going on stage. And I think it had to do with a particular time when I remember the recital that created that nerve. And ever since then, I never overcame that sense of fear each and every time we had a recital thereafter. Now, as an adult, I would know now to recognize what was that event, how do you break it down, and how do you learn from that event, and how do you move on from it? So I think if there's an event or experience with public speaking that you're having a hard time overcoming, that maybe you need to really revisit that event and get that mindset to think that that was in the past, it's not in the future. By no ways is it indicative of how you're going to present at a future event. So really dive into that why. For me, quite frankly, it's simple. I just didn't necessarily feel that I didn't put the two and two together, but it makes a lot of sense once I dissected the problem. And it's because I, quite frankly, was not comfortable with my voice. I felt like my voice was either I talked too loud, or I maybe stuttered a little bit from time to time, which I still do. And I felt like those stutters or those pauses, or sometimes I'm thinking about 3 or 4 different things and I lose my train of thought. And those types of issues that I have with speaking really exude themselves when I'm public speaking because I'm already nervous. So I have to realize that those things are natural. It's sort of just who I am. I may not be as polished of a speaker as somebody else, but it doesn't change that what I have to say can be important, and it's something that might help another person. So I've realized the value that I can provide people, and the underlining message is more important than the stutters, or maybe sometimes the confusion when you're speaking, or if you lose that train of thought. Some of the best speakers have those moments where they lose their train of thought. So whatever your hurdle is, that might be a pre-existing condition that's affecting you to present, work on that issue, hone that, and get comfortable with the notion that you're not going to be perfect, but you can get better and you will improve. And I've been able to do that partially by practice, of course, but also by listening to my voice and getting to know it a little bit better instead of not liking it. Learning just to cope with it. And there are ways to fine tune it. And I'm constantly looking for ways to do that. One little trick that I found is I downloaded an app that really had tools and techniques to help with breathing and making sure you have enough water before you public speak. All those things that you might not realize play a big role in your speaking. are very helpful, but if they're not on your radar, you don't know to apply those little techniques. So I think looking for ways that naturally improve your tone, your voice, and obviously enough sleep. I mean, if you know you're going to present, you're going to want to be well rested. I think also if you're getting up in front of the stage, what you wear, the shoes that you wear, your attire is going to have a bigger impact, because if you're not comfortable, if you're wearing something that's too snug or too loose, or shoes that aren't comfortable, that's just going to be another element of concern while you're public speaking. So make sure that you eliminate those types of distractions in advance. So that would be my number one tip, is to really just look at any pre-existing conditions and preventative measures that can help prepare you for a better outcome before you present. So that's a big hurdle for me that has helped me to get a little bit more comfortable with public speaking. The other thing is there are true techniques to public speaking as far as how to engage your audience, how to create a more interesting presentation. And I've noticed that a lot of us incorporate stories into our public speaking. And I think by doing so, it personalizes the presentation to your audience. So how do you know which stories to tell and what stories are going to resonate with your audience? So part of that storytelling can be conveyed by introducing yourself into the presentation, by telling stories about your experiences so that the audience is more engaged. But more importantly, you want to engage your audience. So how do you engage your audience? Is you bring them into the storytelling. So know in advance who the audience is. Obviously, if your audience is let's say you're a physician and you're speaking to your colleagues, that is going to be a very different audience than if you're speaking to college students that are pre-med that are considering going on to medical school. Those are going to be very different audiences, and your dialogue is going to be different because you have students that don't know the language necessarily of a physician and those that know the language. And who are, whether or not you're talking to a group of specialized physicians in your field versus a broader group of physicians, that too is going to change the vocabulary, the terminology that you're going to use. So it's really important that you study your audience so that you engage your audience. And I think as small business owners, we easily fall into the trap of wanting to speak about things that we're comfortable speaking about. And that is by far the safest place to really introduce and engage your audience, because it allows you to exude your expertise. And we talk about that on other Facebook Lives, how important it is that your audience knows your value and knows how you can help them. So absolutely focus on your expertise, but tie it to your audience so that the value you're providing them can be personalized, internalized, and remembered. And obviously, a combination of talking about your expertise, embedding it, or your experiences. For example, in this case, I'm really not so much sharing my expertise, but sharing my experience with public speaking. And I feel it's so important as a business owner to be confident with public speaking. So another thing to touch on is the fact that public speaking can be a step-by-step process from the standpoint of you're probably not going to sign up for a TED Talk. Certainly, I'm not ready to sign up for a TED Talk if you haven't done enough storytelling, presenting until you're ready for that experience. So find forums such as the Chamber of Commerce, or getting up in front of an association or organization that you belong to. Give yourself these opportunities to public speak is going to allow you to polish your message quite nicely. And when I say polish, I think that goes back to your story is your story, and you're going to have your expertise that is part of every presentation that you give. You don't want to lose sight of your message. It should be woven into any presentation. The difference is going to be tailoring your message and your presentation to your audience. So a lot of successful public speakers will say, like, there is some consistency to their presentations, to their style, so that that sense of familiarity is beneficial for them, but it's also when they speak, but it's also beneficial for the audience because it allows them to have a little bit more of a sense of familiarity to you, even if it's the first time they've ever heard you speak. So really create a style for yourself, and you might have different stories, but the stories can be told and sort of modified based on the audience. What part of my story is going to resonate with this crowd versus what part of the story do you tell your employees? What part of the story do you tell your customers or your colleagues in a different setting? And I also think when you present, the size of the group is important to consider. How many attendees, because how you engage a larger audience might be different than how you engage a smaller audience. I think we see time and again that there's so much value in a Q&A type setting. There's so much value when you can bring the audience into the presentation so that they feel a part of it. So I really wanted to also mention that I think practice is really important. And how do you practice? I think it's tricky. It's something that some people struggle with the practice because they just don't feel comfortable practicing and they just want to get up there. Okay, now here's the real deal. But there are ways to practice, whether it's recording your voice, recording your presentation. Another way to practice is to take a prior presentation, review it, study it, see what you did well, see what needs improvement so that your next presentation is better. So your practice can be post-presentation. So once you've done a presentation, you can allow for that practice to take place and take criticism. I think it's really important that we're open-minded and we learn from what we do well and where we need improvement. So practice your presentations, and I think understanding your style. I think obviously it's important to have an outline, but at the same time, sometimes you have to modify your presentation based on what's attracting the audience, where is their attention, what's of interest to them. You really have to be a listener and be observant when you're speaking, because those cues can really help you connect better with the audience. And another way to do a dress rehearsal, if you will, is to, let's say that you're going to do a presentation at a convention of 1,000 people. You might want to give that same presentation to a similar audience, but a much smaller audience. And that's going to allow you to really get to see how your presentation fares in a smaller audience before you take that presentation to a much larger audience. And I think when it comes to the criticism that I talked about, a great way to really improve your presenting is to ask the audience for feedback. So that feedback may be you provide them with a survey. If it's a bigger event and you're one of many speakers, maybe that's something that's done more at the organizational level. That's something you might want to make sure you ask if there's going to be a way for you to get feedback. You might also want to call people post-event and just get their opinion. Say, I really would value your opinion. Could you share, what about my presentation resonated with you? What didn't? Was it too long? Was it too short? I mean, people are willing to share that feedback. And I think it's important to solicit it. And then, certainly, if you don't survey people, another great way is during your presentation is to make sure that you connect with the audience and let them know that there is a way to get a hold of you, whether you want to give them your email address or direct them to your website, but let them know that they can reach out to you, because that creates another way for you to engage that audience subsequently. And a lot of times presentations is a great way for you to generate more clients and to meet more people, referrals. And it's getting a stage in front of a great audience can be a great way to network. And for many people, they've successfully incorporated opportunities for speaking engagement into their sales strategies because it gives them a forum. It gives them credibility if they speak at different events. And at the same time, it eliminates the one-on-one type networking and selling that can be very time consuming. So if you're not already incorporating speaking engagements into your business, it's something you really should consider doing, because it's going to give you the opportunity to open more windows. And how do you get those speaking engagements? You can start small. Like I said, baby steps to getting in front of audiences is a great way to overcome your fear of public speaking, taking it slower. I know for me, one way I started public speaking was a combination of getting my name and quoted in magazines was like kind of a starting point, because a lot of times when you're getting quoted, you're being interviewed over the phone. So it was a way for me to start talking, not that it was in a big audience, but it was a way that I started getting comfortable with the type of maybe questions that would be asked in a panel type setting, which involves presenting, of course. And then I went from doing these interviews over the phone to, okay, would I be comfortable on a radio show where I would guest speak about my expertise? And that over time, I mean, the first couple of times I was nervous, and then I realized, okay, what am I doing well? What am I not doing well? And certainly we all have to be careful about repeating certain words that we might favor, or the ums and the, I know a common saying that I've overcome is, and we want to try to avoid those slang terms as much as possible. They happen. It's reality. In some ways, it kind of creates the informality, but I think it's important to try to avoid the ums, like I just said, and learn to pause. It's okay to have just a moment to just re-gear, particularly when you're switching topics or you're moving on to, a different type of expression. When you go to tell a story, you might want to pause so that you can reframe yourself so that story is being told like it's in the first person. So I think it's, creating that sense of comfort with public speaking truly comes with practice. It's easy for somebody who's not comfortable with public speaking to want to memorize their speech. Don't do it, because it's just going to make you more nervous, because you're going to be focusing on the words that were to be memorized and less on the topic. And that becomes very much a distraction for your audience. They want to feel connected and engaged to you. And the way that they do that is by you being authentic and recognizing, your personality. And sometimes it's our quirkiness when we get up. Some of us fidget more than others. Some of us talk faster. Some of us talk too slow. And that can be, a problem with public speaking, no differently than somebody talks too fast. So know that we're a resource for you and in this community. That's really our goal, is to get more of you engaged, more of you wanting to share sort of the highlights of running your business and some of the things you're doing well in your business, and recognize that there's things that we all struggle with, and those struggles might vary depending on the person. Some people struggle with the administrative responsibilities of their business. Some people struggle with the marketing and the sales strategy of the business. Some people struggle with leadership. They struggle with retaining employees, or they don't have the processes and procedures in place that allow them to onboard their employees. So know that this group is here for you to really cover the topics that affect a business owner on a day-to-day basis. And we want you to share your struggles, and we want you to share the things that you're doing well. Today, we like to refer to Tuesdays as Touchdown Tuesday. So if there's something you've done well in your business, share it with the group. As it relates to public speaking, I'd love for you to share in the comments some of the ways that you've overcome your fear. And for those of you that don't fear public speaking, I think it's also important for you to kind of share your insight on what makes it easy for you to get up in front of a crowd. We all have important things to say. We have businesses because we know and believe in ourselves, and we believe that the products and the services that we offer our clients are of value. And I'll give a perfect example. I was talking to a couple of clients earlier this morning, and they're struggling a little bit in sales. And what we talked about is that they assume that the client has a real understanding of the pain point and how the customer can approach solving that problem. But in reality, we oftentimes have value, and it's part of our job to really express to the client how we can solve their problems. They may not know how to solve it, but if you have answers and solutions to how they solve their problem, that's what you need to be conveying in the conversation, is not what you offer, but how your offerings can solve the problems of your problem. If your clients knew how to solve their problem, they probably wouldn't need your service. They wouldn't need your help. It would be an easy fix that they could do on their own. And that was really sort of the way that we restructured the sales strategy, was don't focus on what you offer, but focus on how your offers truly solve the problems for your ideal client. So when you're in a situation where you're networking and you're talking about how I can help you, you give those solutions willfully, because it allows them to then associate solving the problem with you and the services that you provide. And in a lot of ways we do that is we, share testimonials. We look for opportunities like speaking engagements, where we can really resonate with audiences and they can really find out more about you and your services and what you have to offer. So look for opportunities to overcome your fears for public speaking. And again, maybe your fear is something else. So share that in the comments as well. It may not be public speaking. It might be something else. So share the fears that sometimes get in the way of you doing the things that are going to allow you to better service your clients and be of better value to your community, to your clients, as well as to your business. Have a great Tuesday, and I'll look forward to checking in again next Tuesday. Janet is on vacation. She's earned it, and she'll be checking in with us again soon. Take care, everyone. Thanks again.